Shivach. Everyone, welcome to Kol Kol Shiva in partnership with Breslov.org and of course Yeshiva Torah Shimon. And all of our listeners, even the folks out there in North Carolina and everywhere else in the world that they listen to us from. I welcome everybody, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to share our words of Torah here from beautiful Israel, Efrat, and it really makes its way around the world. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay, it's very, very exciting this week. I'm always excited because Shabbos is coming, but this Shabbos is very, very special. It's Parshat Vayeshev, and it's also Parshas, and it's also we're getting ready for Chanukah. Unbelievable! Wow! So let's go. We'll learn a little bit. Let's do Parsha, and we'll do a little bit of Hachana for Chanukah as well. I have a lot of material, so let's get started. We'll go over the Parsha in general. And we'll add a couple of nice things in as we go along, and then we'll go to Chanukah. Here we go. So Yaakov, we know last week's Parsha comes back to Canaan, and he meets with his brother Esav, right? That famous meeting. And then the Torah tells us something very amazing. That it tells us all of Esav's, Alufei Esav, all of the generals of Esav, his family, his offspring, his grandchildren, everything. But it's an interesting thing. The Torah says that Esav left. He left Eretz Yisrael. Now let me ask you a question. Esav was the one that was born in Eretz Yisrael. So was Yaakov, of course. And Yaakov had to leave, and he went to Haran. Now, where were all of Yaakov's children born? Where were his children born? Well, 11 of the 12 were born in Haran, right? Mesopotamia. They weren't born in Israel, right? Where were Esav's children born? They were all born in Canaan. They were all born in Israel. His children, his wives were from Israel. They weren't from foreigners. They were from Israel. And his grand everyone. But notice one thing. When he met up with Yaakov and he saw the face of Yaakov and Yaakov's ownership, he felt the ownership of the land of Israel, that Yaakov had claim to the land of Israel. You know what Esav did? He packed everybody up and he went to Har Seir. He left Israel. He had farms, he had homes, he had everything. He packed up and left. Why? Because Yaakov Avinu explained to him, and he saw on his face that I am the landlord here, not you. He said, if that's the case, I'm getting out of here. See, today we live in Eretz Yisrael, and we have all of these Arabs all over the place. The problem that we have today is, you know what our problem is? We don't believe the land is our land. And therefore, the Arabs stay. The day we would believe that this is our land and stand up to them and tell them, this is our land, that's it, they'll all just pack up and go. We have two examples of that. Two examples, I'll give you that of how that happened in modern time. During the 6-Day War, when the Chayalim, the soldiers, made it to the Jaffa Gate, Shar Yafa, in Jerusalem, right outside the walled city, the old city. The soldiers had amongst them all, maybe 10 or 15 bullets. That's all they had. But orders were, take the city, go in. Now they knew the Jordanians were armed. The Jordanians were well fed. The Jordanians had artillery. They had everything. But they went through those gates. As soon as the Jordanians saw them, you know what they did? They left. They ran for their lives. Why? Because the Chayalim coming in believed this is our city. And they left. You know, at the very same time, Rabbi Gorin, the general, Rabbi Gorin, he went in his Jeep with his driver and he came to Hebron. When Rabbi Gorin came to Hebron, you know what happened? They picked up their white flags and they surrendered to him. Again, because he believes it's our land. That's our answer, to believe it's our land. Okay. Yaakov Avinu comes back and he's now in Eretz Yisrael. Esav left. And the Torah tells us that he explains to us the children of Yaakov Avinu. And then it says that Yosef Avinu was 17 years old. And his father did something strange. His father gave him a special coat. It was called the Kisonis Pasim. Now, Pasim is an acronym, actually. What's the acronym? The pay for Pasim is for Potiphar. That he was going to be involved and be a slave servant for Mr. Potiphar. The Samach is for Schayra, merchandise. The Yud is for Yishmaelim. The Mem is for Midian or for Mitzrayim. Which means, in the code itself, that it was called Pasim, explained already what he was going to experience. It's amazing. Just by the code, the name. Everything in the Torah is so deep. Everything in the Torah has so much meaning. Even the name of his coat is called Kisonis Pasim. Unbelievable. Yosef is told that his brothers didn't like him. Why didn't they like him? Because he was Nar Espenei Billah V'Zilpa. He was playing, he took care of the children that were born to Billah, his mother's maidservant, Rachel's maidservant, and Zilpah, which was Leah's maidservant. And the Shvatim, the ones that were born to Leah, made fun of these young men. And they said, no, you're slaves. You're slaves. You were born to a maidservant, therefore you're a slave. And Yosef would befriend them. And Yosef made them feel special. And the brothers didn't like that. And Yosef would go and tell his father what they were doing. He would tell them what they were doing, and he would tell them, it says it would be basam ra. He would tell over what they were doing that wasn't so nice. He said that they ate Eva min achai. He said that they were involved in arayas. Okay? All those things he talked about, he wound up getting, because he spoke that Lashon Hara, he wound up getting in trouble because of those things. Well, how? He spoke about Arias. Well, Mrs. Potiphar was a married lady. She was seducing him. Had he even gotten involved with her, that would have been a matter of Arias, right? Immorality. The fact that they slaughtered the animal and dipped his coat into it was the Eva min achai. We have to be so careful what we say. We have to be so careful what we say, because everything we say, we are saying our own faith. When we talk, we are talking about our own faith. It's fascinating. Now, Yosef has two dreams. Let's talk about the dreams. The first dream Yosef has is that they're in a field and they're gathering sheaves of wheat, straw, wheat. And he says that there were bundles that went around his bundle, and the bundles bowed down to him. 10 bundles around his bundle, and they bowed down to him. Interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. Why? The first time the brothers met Yosef in Mitzrayim, the first time, when Yaakov Avinu sent them down when there wasn't any food to eat in Canaan. So Yaakov Avinu heard that there's shever, there's food in Mitzrayim. He sent the brothers down. Next week's parsha. He sent the brothers down next week in Miketz that we read on Chanukah, right? Every year, Kimat. And the brothers then came to Yosef and they bowed down to him. But they didn't know who he was. They had no idea who he was. Like in the dream. The first time, it was sheaves. It didn't describe who it was. It was their sheaves. It was his sheaf. And they all bowed down to his sheaf. But it didn't say who it was. That's the same way when they met him in Mitzrayim and they bowed down to him, they didn't know it was him. The second dream is fascinating. The second dream says that the stars, the sun and the moon all bow down to him. Wow, very interesting. Why? Yaakov Avinu understood that the sun was Yaakov Avinu. The moon was Rachel Imeinu. He says to Yosef, how is this possible? How is this possible that your mother's going to bow down to you? Even if you do become important, she's died. But what he didn't realize was that Bilhah was the moon. Because Yaakov Avinu put his bed in the tent of Bilhah after Rachel Imeinu passed away. Wow. He didn't realize that. Yaakov Avinu didn't realize that. Now that leads to a question, and maybe we'll understand now the next part, and we're going to go over something. In last week's Parsha, in Vayishlach, it says a strange thing. It says that Reuven was with Bilhah. It seems when you read the pasuk that Reuven had relations, chas v'sholem, to even think that, but that's what it reads, with Bilhah. His father's concubine, his wife. How could he even think that? There are many pshatim on that. It wasn't that at all. There's many pshatim. One of them that I saw is so beautiful. I want to share this with you. Do you know that there were really supposed to be 14 shvatim? Here, you hear this from Sushia? There were supposed to be 14 shvatim. Not 12, 14. How are there going to be 14 shvatim? That very night, where Yaakov Avinu was going to be with Bilhah was going to have twins. And those twins would have been then the 14 Shvatim. There would have been 14 Shvatim. However, Reuven was outside the tent, making a lot of ruckus, so that way his father wouldn't be able to be with Bilhah. But then Reuven realized, I realized, wait a second, there was supposed to be another 2 Shvatim. Oy vey. Now what's going to be? And then he thinks, hey, wait a minute. The children will come from Yosef. Gewalt. But then what happened? In this week's parsha, it says that the brothers were in Dyson, a place called Dyson. And Yaakov Avinu sent Yosef to check on the well-being of his brothers and the sheep that they were tending to in Shechem. Now let's remember, Shimon and Levi wiped out the people of Shechem, remember? Now they were in Shechem. So Yaakov Avinu was worried for their well-being. Perhaps someone will want to take revenge on them. He didn't know. He sent Yosef down. Yosef meets this strange man. He meets a man. He asks him where his brothers go. And he tells them. He tells it. And Yosef goes and his brothers see him. And his brothers plot to kill him. Now wait a second. Hold on. We're talking about the Shiftei Kah. We're talking about great people. I mean, even today, we all get it. We all have a little argument with our siblings, right? We all have arguments with our siblings. I don't think any of us would think of killing our sibling. You may want to, but you'd never think of doing that. Come on. You may get upset, but you never would think of doing that. How do we understand that these great people wanted to murder their brother? How do we understand that? You ever think of that? How can we understand that? Also, they made a din Torah, and they said that he's chayiv misa. Where did they get the idea? Where did they get the idea of doing something on their own without asking their father? Shouldn't they have asked Yaakov Avinu? They had their great father. They could have came to Yaakov Avinu and said, look, Yaakov, listen, dear father. For this and this reason, we believe Yosef should be put to death. And let him give instruction. But why didn't they do that? They learned from Reuven. See, Reuven, again, last week's parsha, he didn't seek the counsel of Yaakov Avinu. Hey, Yaakov, my dear father, Father, your wife Rachel passed away, and we know that she was very, very dear to you. I know that. But Father, now that she passed away, wouldn't it be right for you to live and stay with my mother Leah? He could have asked him. He could have asked him without taking the initiative on his own to take Yaakov Avinu's bed. He took his bed physically out of the tent of Bilhah and he put it into the tent of Leah without asking. He's the older brother. Oh, so the brother said, wait a second. We can make a decision on our own also, just like Reuven did. He didn't ask, so why do we have to ask? We could take matters into our own hands. It's amazing. It's amazing to understand the psychology. If you have an older brother, what the brother does and how he acts, it makes such a roshim, makes such an impression on the children. It's unbelievable. You see that from this story. Okay, so what happens? What happens? So they plot and they want to kill him. Reuben says, hold on a second, hold on. Reuben intervenes and to save Yosef's life. Why? He's saying, thinking to himself, wait a second, I stopped my father from having the two shvatim, the two other tribes that were supposed to come from Bilah. I stopped that, and I thought, the saving grace was that the children would come from Yosef. But now wait a second, if you want to put Yosef to death, how are those two tribes going to be born? So he tries to save Yosef's life. Because again, he realizes what he did wrong. So he makes a suggestion, instead of killing him, let's put him into the pit. The Torah says, Ein mayim. There's no water. Rashi says, yes, there was no water. But what was there? Nachashim v'akravim. There were snakes and scorpions in the pit. And Reuben said like this, look, why do we have to kill him red-handed and have blood on our hands? We'll put him into the pit, and if a snake bites him, a scorpion bites him, we didn't do anything. It was terrible what they did to Yosef, though. They took off Yosef's coat, his kisatonet pasim, like we spoke about. And Yosef was unclothed. They put Yosef in the pit, unclothed. Just like happened to Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu also was met by Eliphaz. And Eliphaz took all of his garments. There's a very big similarity to the things that happened to Yosef and happened to Yaakov. Unbelievable. They put him into the pit. And what was Reuben thinking? I'll come back later. I'll take Yosef back to father. And I'll make good. I'll make right for the wrong that I did. I'll make right. Yehuda had an idea. They sat down to eat and they were eating a meal. And they slaughtered the goat. And Yehuda said, hey, wait a second. I see there's Yishmaelim coming by. Arabs. Why don't we sell Yosef to them? Why do we have to kill him for? So what did they do? They took him out of the pit and they sold him to the Yishmaelim. Amazing.
Nice brothers.
Very good brothers, right? Very good. They sold him. Instead of shedding his blood. They sold him for 20 pieces of silver. That's it. 20 pieces of silver. Well, like I told you, they dipped the ketonet pasim into the goat's blood, and they brought it to Yaakov Avinu. He said, Tarif Yosef. Yosef got torn up by a wild animal. and Yaakov Avinu was mourning, and he would not be consoled. He could not be consoled. Chazal teach us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu works it out when someone chas v'shalom loses a loved one. As time goes on, he gets healing. But that's if the person passed away. If the person's just missing, it never goes away. Similarly to our hostages that we had, right? The hostages. When they knew they could never get consolation, they couldn't be consoled. The parents of these hostages couldn't be consoled because their children were alive. Yaakov Avinu couldn't be consoled. Okay, now the Torah goes on to another story. The story goes on to tell us about Yehuda and Tamar. This strange story. The Torah tells us that Yehuda met a lady, a local lady. Met a local lady, and he married this local lady, and they had 3 children: Onan, Er, and Shelah. The 3 children that they had. Tamar married Yehuda's eldest son, Er. Tamar was a very, very beautiful lady. A very, very beautiful lady. And Er, when he had relations with her, would spill the seed. He would spill the seed. He didn't allow her to become impregnated. And because of that, the Torah tells us Hashem was very angry that he did something like that. And there we see the terrible sin of spilling the seed. Right here, the Torah tells us. And he died. Then the Torah tells us, okay, there's a mitzvah of Yibum. You have a mitzvah of Yibum, right? If you have a brother, an older brother, he gets married, he passes away before he has any children. So there's a mitzvah for the next brother to marry his sister-in-law, to be Yochim Shem, to lift up the name, to establish the name of his deceased brother. So what happened? Onan and Er and Shelah, right? Well, he became what do you call it? He did the Yibum like his father told him to, but he did the same thing. He did not ejaculate into his wife. Rather, he spilled the seed again. And because he spilled the seed again, Hashem was angry at him, and he also passed away. Okay. Then there was one left brother, Shelah. He was the last one. But he was a young man. He was too young to get married. So what happened? Tamar went back to her father's house. And she was wearing her clothes of mourning. Because she was in mourning. She now lost 2 husbands. But Tamar did something very, very interesting. What did she do? Tamar made a plan. And when Yehuda was traveling, when Yehuda was traveling, Tamar disguised herself as a harlot. She covered her face on the crossroad. And again, we don't understand how these things happen, and we're not trying to question anything. But Yehuda saw her, and Yehuda wanted to be with her. So she said to him, okay, what will you pay me? So he said, I don't have any money, but I have my seal, I have my cord, and I have my staff. I'll give you these as collateral until I can send you a goat as payment. We got a goat again. Now what happened was they had their relation. She became pregnant. Yehuda left. Yehuda had sent his friend to go and bring the goat to the Zayna. He gets there, and she's not there. She's not there. He goes back to Yehuda and he tells him, I don't know. She's not there. They don't know anyone. They said there was no harlot over here. 3 months passed, the Torah tells us, and Yehuda finds out that Tamar was pregnant. And he thought that she had an illicit relationship. And she was the Bas Kohen. Well, the Torah says, if a Bas Kohen shezinsa, if a Bas Kohen has nus, all right, she has an immoral relation, she gets burnt. So Yehuda said, take her out and burn her. When she was coming out to be burned, she took with her the 3 items: the staff, the cord, right? She took the staff and the cord, and she she showed it, and she said to whom these belong is the Father. To whom these belong is the Father. She did not divulge, hey, Yehuda, it was you. You're the Father, and embarrass him. We learn out from this story. Amazing. She had twins. She was about to give up her own life and the lives of her 2 unborn children not to embarrass Yehuda. Amazing. How much we have to make sure never to embarrass anybody. It's like you killed him. It's a terrible thing. You learn it from the story. Okay. Tamar gives birth to twins, and their names were Peretz and Zorach. And from them came David HaMelech. Isn't that amazing? We learn from this very amazing things how HaKadosh Baruch Hu hides big neshamas in very mysterious ways. Why? Because up on high, there's opposition. There's opposition by the Sitra Achar, by the Satan. He doesn't want us to advance. Because he knows if we advance, especially Mashiach comes, he's out of business. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu does things in mysterious ways. Okay, now, Yosef got sold in Mitzrayim. Oh, I forgot to say that the Yishmaelim was selling some beautiful scented perfumes which was not the case that the Ishmael normally would carry, all because to protect Yosef. So you should have an uncomfortable ride. It's amazing. Mamash amazing. Yosef gets sold to Potiphar. Potiphar was a very, very important officer, an Egyptian officer and a captain of Paroi. He was his guard. Very important, distinguished person. And Yosef had a lot of success. And he became so successful, leading Potiphar to put him in charge of his entire household. Can you believe that? He's the slave, and he's running his entire household. Potiphar's wife, she was a very, very interesting lady. She was a lady that was very promiscuous. She was a lady that wanted a lot of extra relations with things that she should not have done and be involved in znus. But she also saw in the stars. And she said, hey, wait a second. I see you, Yosef, having children with me. So this is right. We're supposed to do this. And the Medrash tells us that every day she would change her clothing twice, 3 times, 4 times to just entice him. But Yosef would never look at her. He would never look. Could you imagine that? He was a young lad. He was 18 years old now, maybe. And he wouldn't look at her. With all the hormones, a young man. And it came that day. And there was a holiday in Egypt. There was a holiday in Egypt where they worshiped the Nile River. And this was the day that the Nile overflowed. And therefore they all went to their churches to pray. And it was a great holiday in Egypt. It was a great holiday. Everyone went. But Mrs. Potiphar said, oh, I don't feel good today. I'll stay home. I'll stay home. What was her intention? To hit on Yosef. And we know that Yosef was so handsome. He was such a very, very handsome person. And he constantly refused, stating that this would be a sin against Hashem. And I won't do that. And on that day, she grabs his garment. She was so upset that he wouldn't even look at her. So she grabbed him. She couldn't get his attention. Can you imagine that today? A young man is in a place, there's nobody there at all. Nobody there at all. It's just him and the lady. Can you imagine today how that would be? I can't. But he was there alone. Nobody was there. It was just him. They had no videotape, no cameras in the house, no, none of that. It was just him. But yet, he overcomes. Why? He saw the most duknai of him. He saw the image of his father's face. Wow. He saw Yaakov Avinu. And he was thinking, wait a second. I am supposed to be on the choshen, on the breastplate. I have a place on the breastplate of the Kohen. Gadol. If I do this, I'll lose my place. How can I do this? And Yosef runs. He runs hachutza. He runs out. And she's holding his garment. First time he lost his garment, his brothers took it from him. Now he loses his garment again. She grabbed it. And he ran. So what happened? What happened? Potiphar came home, and Potiphar said, well, what happened here? And she started screaming, do you know that this guy that you hired, he tried to rape me? I can't believe this guy tried to rape me. He got so upset, Potiphar. He got so angry at her, and angry at the situation. And he was going to go to the authorities and have him killed. But what happened? Let me tell you what happened. This is amazing. Everyone buckle up and listen to this story good. There was a young lady. Her name was Asnas. Who was Asnas? Who was Asnas? Do you know who Asnas was? She was Dinah's daughter. Dinah, remember Dinah got violated by Shem? Remember? Dinah was violated by Shem. They had a child. The child's name was Asnas. What happened to that child? Let me tell you what happened to that child. How about that child? That child was considered an illegitimate child in the face of the Shvatim. And they didn't want anything part of this girl. So they left her on the side of the road. And the Ishmaelim found her and brought her down to Mitzrayim. And Potiphar took her as his daughter. They didn't have children. He took her as a child. She was growing up in his house. Everyone went to the service that morning. But little Asnas was still there. She was upstairs. And the little girl was watching what was going on. And she called over Potiphar. She said, Daddy, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what really happened. It was really Mommy that was starting up with this Yosef. And it wasn't he started up with her. It didn't happen like that. That's why Potiphar only got him in trouble and he got put in jail. And he wasn't put to death. It's amazing how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the whole situation. How she has to be not accepted by the family. And she has to be in that house on that day where Yosef is tested. The test of all time. They say, the Chazal tell us that the attraction that he had and that desire that he had was more than all desires of every man of all time that has with a lady was that's how he felt. But he overcame it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu protected him. So he's in prison. And again, anywhere Yosef goes, even though he's in prison, he's in a miserable Egyptian prison, he does well over there too. And the warden sees he's special. And the warden makes him in charge of the jail. And then one morning, Yosef used to see all the prisoners. And he used to greet them every morning. And one morning he saw the Sarah Oifim and the Sarah Mashkin. And the two of them looked down. And he asked them, hey guys, top of the morning to you. And they said, well, we had a dream and we don't know what the dream means. So Yosef says, why don't you tell me the dream? Maybe I can help you. So they tell him the dreams. And Yosef HaTzaddik says to them, well, the butler, the winemaker, will be restored to his position in 3 days. And the baker, the Sarah Oifim, the baker, will be executed and hung in 3 days. And that's what happens. And Yosef asks the Sarah Mashkim, hey, you know what? Please, maybe help me. Get me out of this situation. Again, he put his trust into people. He put his trust into person. But it says, V'loi zocha Sarah Mashkim es Yosef vayishkacheyu. And he forgot him. And he had to stay in jail for another 2 years because he put his hope in people. Okay, this is the parsha. Now let's talk about a little bit about Chanukah. Does anyone have any questions on this? If not, then let's go on to the story of Chanukah. Okay, let's go on to the story of Chanukah. The story of Chanukah, where we had the Chashmonaim, there was a revolt against the Greeks, the Yevonim. Antiochus, his whole goal was to destroy Jewish identity. He wanted to destroy Jewish identity. He didn't allow 3 things. What were the 3 things? Mila, Shabbos, and of course, Chodesh. And what Antiochus did was he placed in the Beis HaMikdash an idol. Can you believe that? He placed an idol in the Beis HaMikdash. And they sacrificed pigs in the Beis HaMikdash to the idol. It was a horrible time. At that time, most Jews, I would say most Jews, became Hellenistic. They became Hellenistic. They believed in the Greek culture. They believed in the Greek sports. They believed in the Greek philosophy. They loved it. They saw so much light. It looked so grand to them. They would go to the gymnasium unclothed. Unbelievable. The rebellion began in Modi'in with the Kohen Gadol Matisyahu HaChashmonai. Matisyahu was the Kohen Gadol, and Matisyahu, he had passed away, and he had given over control to his son Yehuda Maccabee. And they had a small army. And they were able to defeat the Greeks on the 25th of Kislev. Hence calling it Chanukah Hey, and they rested on the 20th. But I want to tell you something that maybe you don't know. It's a beautiful story. Let me tell you a story what happened. There was a lady named Yehudit. Yehudit was a sister of Yehuda, and the daughter of Matisyahu Kohen. Special lady. And there was a general. His name was Holofernes. He was a wicked, wicked man. What did he say? He made a decree. All right, Jewish ladies, you want to get married? Okay. You'll have to first spend the first night of your wedding with me. Wow. Of course, Jewish girls didn't want to get married. They wouldn't want to be with this Greek general. This Halafneres was about to besiege the city of Beisel. Beisel was the city that Yaakov Avinu came to last week, and he anointed and he made it holy, remember? And he wanted to starve the people of Beisel, to force them to abandon their God. Again, he didn't want to kill anyone. The Greeks didn't want to kill anybody physically. They wanted to kill their neshamas, not their bodies. They loved their bodies. Not only that, the Greeks wanted to intermarry with the Jews. The Greeks wanted to intermarry with the Jews. They wanted that. The same way you have it now in America. Someone told me the intermarriage rate in America now is over 90%. I almost fell off my chair, honestly. 90%. That means from out of every 10 Jewish people, 9 marry out. It's a scary number. It's a scary number. So what happened? So this Yehudit said like this. She had a plan. She came up with a plan. She was a very, very beautiful, pious lady. She was a wealthy widow. She was connected with the high priest. She was connected with the high priest. She was connected with the Kohen Gadol. Temple sanct. Okay. The ploy. Yehuda decided to take action, recognizing that relying solely on defense had failed. So what did she do? She dressed herself up in her finest clothing. She was accompanied by her maidservant and bravely entered the enemy camp. Could you believe this? This young lady goes into the enemy camp. Under the pretense of revealing a secret path to victory to Halafneres. She said she has a way to teach that she can help him come to be successful in taking down the Jewish people and getting them to agree with him and get everyone to agree to him, so there'll be no Jews serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. Wow, he loved that. The deception of Halafneres was taken by her beauty, and she claimed she ate only kosher. She was granted access to him and in his inner circle for several days. She was there for several days. On the 4th night, listen to this, listen to good. On the 4th night, she held a private feast and drank heavily. Halafneres had a big feast, and he ate and he drank a lot. And he ate cheese. She brought him cheese. And she brought him wine, very strong, undiluted wine. And she brought him very salty cheese, so he'd want to drink more wine. And he passed out. This Halafneres, this great general, passed out. And he was lying there. Yehuda davened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, what should I do? she came up with the idea. She took his sword, Halafnaris's sword, the general's sword, and she sliced off his head. She beheaded him. Can you believe that? This young lady beheaded the great general. Now, she would come with a bag. She had a little picnic basket that she came with her food because she only ate kosher food. She emptied out her basket and she put his head in the basket. I'm sorry, it's a little gruesome, but that's what she did. She put the head in the basket. And she and the maidservant very nonchalantly walked out in a tent, happy, singing. And they go right past all of the guards. They go right past everyone. They go out of the camp. And she makes her way back to Beisel. And in the morning, they took that head and they hung it up high over the walls. And all the Greek soldiers saw their general's head hanging. They went crazy. They went berserk. They didn't know what to do. They had no guidance. That's when Yehuda and his brothers and the little army, there was only about 13 people, went out with their swords, with red vengeance. We're going to get you. Even though these are warriors. They saw these guys coming and the head hanging there. They all skedaddled. They all left. They ran for their lives. The same way Esav ran for his life when he saw Yaakov. The same way when they saw Rabbi Goren in Hebron, they all put up their flags. When they saw the Chayalim come into the Yafa gate, they all surrendered, they all skedaddled. That's how they were able to win the war. But nobody knows that it was because of Yehuda. It was because of this brave young lady. That's how they were able to win the war. It's amazing. I want to tell you like this. And that's why there's a custom when the candles are burning, the women aren't supposed to do any work. They're supposed to relax and watch the candles also. We know that there are 36 candles connected to the 36 hours that Adam and Chava were in Gan Eden, which was called the Ar HaGanuz, the hidden light. And that hidden light is found in our candles. In our candles. The hidden light's found in our candles. Now, how do we know? How do we know about that? How do we know about that? Because there are 36. There are 36, and because there are 36, that's how we know that. There's so many things to talk about when it comes to Chanukah. But the most important thing is to remember one thing. It's a new start. It's a fresh start. It's a fresh start. And no matter where you were till now, start over. Hischatshut. Start again. That's why we read Chanukah Samizbeach. Renewing, restarting. Start again. Start again. And it's so important. It's so important that when you sit with the lights, to look at the lights. The Holy Kedushas Levi, Zechus Yogin Aleinu, Reb Levi Yitzchak Ben Sarah Sasha, would sit 7 hours, staring, gazing at the Chanukah lights. Can you imagine the genius, the Goyin Olam? He had enough time to look at the lights. They say the great San Zerov, he knew Kol HaTorah. He was a great Lamdin. 6 hours he would watch the lights. It's amazing. Let us all take advantage of Chanukah. Let us all take advantage of Tefillah. Daven to Hashem. Talk to Hashem. Isboded us. Talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in front of the candles. Talk to Hashem. Hashem is there with you. He wants to hear your tefillah. I want to wish everyone we should have a beautiful lechtige Shabbos, a lit up Shabbos, of course, and a lechtige Chanukah, and we should all be zoicha together to come with Mashiach Tzidkenu, with Binyan Bayis Shlishi, on Har Bayis where it belongs, with the brand new menorah that'll be there, and we'll see the lights. We'll see the lights of the Kohen lighting the menorah. We'll see the true light again, the Aragonas again, with our own Fleische Geoigen. But now we have the Chanukah candles, and take advantage of the Chanukah candles. And the same way our wives, the ladies, daven when they light their candles. Why? Because they did a mitzvah. So it becomes an Eis Ratzon. When you do a mitzvah, it becomes an Eis Ratzon, and it becomes a time for prayer. Pray the same way the ladies pray. We are lighting candles. It's our time. We have to pray. And let's take advantage of praying. Thank you everyone for listening. Kol Tuv.